Most people experience Europe in fragments. They land somewhere new and suddenly everything feels different. Different language, different architecture, different rhythm. And that jump makes the contrast feel dramatic. But what if the drama is just the jump? I started this trip in Berlin, and instead of flying straight to Italy, I decided to take trains all the way to Venice. Roughly 1,000 kilometers through Germany, Austria, Switzerland, and even a tiny country most people have never heard of. No shortcuts, no teleporting, just moving through everything in between. Because when you actually travel through Europe like this, something interesting happens. It doesn't suddenly change, it slowly transforms. Strangely enough, this journey started at the airport in Berlin, but I wasn't flying anywhere. I was heading down into the basement to catch a regional train. Once on board, the train's screen was already wrong, which in hindsight feels like a pretty accurate start to this trip. I really just knew one thing for sure. I was heading south.
This is what the German Democratic Republic's model socialist city from the 60s looks like now.
Welcome to Chemnitz. Now, this city has a bit of a reputation, so I was curious, is it actually deserved? I mean, it doesn't exactly help when your first sight is someone peeing on a wall, but let's give it a chance. Chemnitz is the third largest city in the German state of Saxony. Before World War II, it was a major industrial hub, especially for mechanical engineering. But like many German cities, during the war it was heavily bombed. Then during the GDR era, it was renamed Karl-Marx-Stadt or Karl-Marx City as part of an effort to turn it into a model socialist city, hence the statue. After reunification in the 90s, the name Chemnitz came back, but a lot of that history is still very visible. And yeah, parts of town feel a little rough around the edges. But once you get closer to the center, it starts to feel a lot more like just a normal German city. After the war, a lot of it had to be rebuilt, and today there are some pretty nice streets around. So I hopped on a local tram, which is probably the easiest way to get around here, and about 10 minutes later, I was right back where I started at the central station.
But that's all the time I've got here in Chemnitz, and it's time to head off to the next place.
And this is where something interesting about train travel starts to happen. The moment you leave a city like this, the landscape doesn't reset. It just transitions. In this case, the transition is actually crossing what used to be a real border. East Germany, or the GDR, and West Germany, the Federal Republic. Two completely different systems that are now part of the same country. For this trip, I wanted to go a bit beyond the usual route. Germany's high-speed intercity express trains are great if you just want to get from A to B quickly. But if you actually want to see what's in between, regional trains are the way to do it. There's also a type of train ticket that makes this way easier. It's currently 63 euros, and it lets you take pretty much all the regional trains in Germany for an entire month. Effectively, that means you can cross the entire country for less than the price of a high-speed train ticket or a flight. And as we crossed into what used to be West Germany, honestly not that much had changed, at least not at first. Though at this point I wasn't traveling alone anymore. My wife Rasa had joined me for the rest of the journey. So we made our way down to Nuremberg, grabbed some Ethiopian food, slightly unexpected for Bavaria, and called it a night. The next morning, Nuremberg felt completely different than Chemnitz. This is a city that somehow carries a lot of history at once. From its medieval old town to the much darker legacy of the Nuremberg trials after World War II. But today it's just a really easy place to walk around. Compact streets, a very German-feeling skyline, and good food. Those little Nürnberger sausages are popular all throughout the country, and I was lucky to be in town during mushroom season. So a little coffee, a lot of rain, and it was time to head back to the train station to continue my journey south. Even before leaving Germany, the idea of it as one cohesive place starts to break down. After just a few train rides and a few different cities, it was already clear that Germany varies a lot more than people expect. And even though my next stop would be my last one in the country, I wasn't really prepared for how different it would feel. That's before even getting into what happened when I crossed into Austria, Liechtenstein, and Switzerland, because what surprised me most is that the Alps don't just suddenly appear. As the train moves south, the landscape doesn't dramatically change, it just slowly shifts. Hills get steeper, towns get smaller, and then at some point, you're there. And stepping out of the station, you're immediately right on the harbor, not a bad place to start. I've been all the way north in Germany before, places like Rügen or Sylt that are known for their coastline and nature. But I honestly didn't expect to find something this different all the way down south. Lindau isn't just near the Alps anymore. On this island in Lake Constance, you can literally feel the mountain air. And the whole environment is just so different from the rest of Germany.
What is this even?
Everything is a little bit more polished, almost carefully maintained, but still surrounded by stunning natural scenery.
So I'll try to walk around the island here for a little bit as long as the weather holds out, but once it starts to rain, I'm going to be heading over onto the other side of the lake there. And walking around the island here is really nice. They've got this walkway that seems to go around almost the whole island. This is definitely one of the nicer places I've ever been in Germany where I've taken a walk. And you basically have like 4 different countries in sight. Right now I'm in Germany, of course, but then over there is Austria, and then a little bit over there is Switzerland. And of course, tomorrow I'll be going over to the country of Liechtenstein, which is just a little bit further. And Lindau seems to be a really interesting town. I'm actually only checking out the island part, which is over here, but then over there, it's kind of the mainland part of Lindau. The fact that you can walk around the whole island means that you can get amazing views from everywhere on the island.
And with the weather holding up just long enough, it even felt like a good idea to get into the water.
Pretty cool. But as I'm at the edge of this alpine region, it really starts to remind me a lot of Switzerland. And the prices are reminding me of Switzerland a little bit too, because I just had a bagel and a coffee, and that was like a little bit over 10 euros. But I've got one more train to take for the day, and I'll actually have to buy a separate ticket for that one because it's on the Austrian Railways. But I think it only costs like 10 euros. But it does look like it's going to start to rain here pretty soon in Lindau, and I'm pretty beat for the day. So I'm going to take another 1-hour train ride, and soon I'll be over in Feldkirch in a new country, in Austria.
From there, the train ride continued along the lake, easily one of the most scenic parts of the journey so far. Rain was threatening the whole way, and it was slowly getting dark, but before I really had the chance to think about it, we were already in Austria. And I mean that literally, because when we crossed the border, nothing changed. There weren't any checkpoints, no signs, no moment where it felt like we were in a different country. Just the same landscape continuing.
And I've arrived to my Austrian town for the night, which is named Feldkirch, or creatively, Field Church.
So for the night, we checked into a hotel right above the station. And surprisingly, it was actually pretty nice.
This place only cost me like 115 euros with breakfast, which I think is pretty reasonable for Austria. I mean, this hotel room is not like super large, but it's very functional. And then this bed, it looks top notch, really. It feels like it too. But for the time being, it is still raining pretty hard, and there's some lightning going outside, right outside of this window. So I think I'm going to be staying in for this night. You can't smell it probably, but it smells really good in here, like essential oils. And I don't know if it's Austrian style or something, but think about what I haven't shown you in this room yet. Well, it's right over here. The toilet is actually separate from the shower, but I sure am looking forward to visiting a new country that I've never been to tomorrow. That's always a nice feeling. But for now, I'm pretty tired, so I think I'm going to eat something and then head to bed.
The next morning started with breakfast, which in true Central European fashion was taken pretty seriously. There was even a Julius Meinl espresso machine in the room, which I may or may not have slightly overused.
And if you're wondering why I'm staying over here in Austria, well, if you've ever looked at the prices in Liechtenstein, the answer is probably pretty obvious. It's just really expensive over there. So yeah, it was a good night here. But the checkout is a little bit early. It's at 10 a.m. and right now it's like 9:59 a.m. So I'm just heading down to the elevator with my wife in a rush.
Before crossing the border into Liechtenstein, we went out to explore the small Austrian town we were staying in.
Well, Feldkirch seems to have a pretty nice old town. And after all of that rain, the river is like almost flooded right now. And there seem to be a few different ways to get from Austria over to Liechtenstein, but I'm near a bus stop and there's a bus coming. Okay. Dankeschön. But that bus was not the correct bus, but this bus coming here right now seems to be the right one. I guess it's number 11 that I wanted in the end. Zagans. Okay. 5 Euro?
2 Personen.
Ja, 2 Personen.
Karte okay?
Geht das? Dankeschön. Vielen Dank.
Dankeschön.
Pretty nice new bus they've got here. And in just about 30 minutes, I've made it to a new country. And it looks like I'm in the capital of this country, according to this. I didn't even realize I was going to the capital. And I mean, they really have some peculiar, like, little statues and stuff here. Apparently there's this rhinoceros that people like to come here and see as well. I'm just going to take a look around it and see if I can't find some sort of information on exactly what this is supposed to represent. Ah, it's hidden behind the rhinoceros. on the brick here. No, it's not. That's something else. I mean, this is some very strange stuff. I don't think I've ever seen any other modern piece of art that looks like that. It's kind of cool. And so far, this little country is a little bit more interesting than I imagined, to be honest. Looks like there's a little cathedral here. And being the capital over here, there's also a few government buildings. There's that one, and then there's this, I guess it's the Landtag. And there's a little bit more art behind this government building. And I suppose a lot of people visit here just to visit one more country. But if you just wanted to get a passport stamp, which you don't get at borders anymore because Liechtenstein is a part of the Schengen zone, you can just pay 3 Swiss francs or 3 euros and 20 cents to get one here. And they have a bunch of little souvenirs and stuff like that. And this whole main street is just filled with cool different art exhibitions. But I'm kind of in need of coffee, so I'm going to check out this American Bagel and Coffee Company shop.
You can generally pay in euro or Swiss francs in Liechtenstein, but the barista informed us that the card terminals had been down all day for some reason.
Oh, really? So a lot of things in Liechtenstein are not working right now?
It's in Austria. Liechtenstein is also in one. I'm not sure, but in Austria there's one where I live and they don't can.
And you live in Österreich?
Yeah.
Ah, okay, cool. It's common that people like commute here to work, or?
Yeah, a lot of people. So because you don't pay a lot of taxes here, only 4%.
Oh, yeah?
Liechtenstein,
But
Austria 55.
But you work here, so you get to pay taxes here, not in Austria.
I need to pay taxes here and Austria, but so it's not so much taxes when I work there. So
Okay.
it's a little bit less taxes.
We were in Feldkirch this morning.
Yeah.
That's your city.
Yeah.
Okay.
City.
It's nice with the river.
Yeah, it's very nice there. So you're in the city, but it's not so big, so it's not so loud or something in night. It's very nice there. It's so much cheaper there because all the most people who live here go to Austria to private.
Okay.
So,
And just cross the border to work and then.
yeah, right.
Wow.
Because it's the half price in Austria than here. So I think so it's 4.50 for 1 order. In Austria it's 80 cents.
It's the same like Switzerland here, the prices,
Yeah,
right? More or less.
right.
What's your name? Sorry.
Luisa,
Okay, David.
nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Cheers. And the prices are seriously notably different than just across the border in Austria. So one nice little hack is to just get one big coffee and then turn it into 2. That's the original coffee, and then I asked for a second cup and she kindly gave it to me. So I got 2 coffees for the price of like 8 over in Austria. Right there is the castle. So I think it's time to head up, especially while it's not raining. And it's no joke going up this hill. It's pretty steep, but it's not that far up. And it's not steep the whole way. It actually really chills out quite a lot. This place is technically like a monarchy, but it's also democratic. So they have these signs that kind of explain everything in German, French, and English. And in addition to that democracy, they have very, very nice views of Switzerland. And I'm just getting up to the castle here, which is dated back to at least the 13th century, and the tower was built sometime in the 12th century. But unlike most castles you'll find in Europe, you actually can't visit this one, at least not usually. Hi, if I wanted to actually enter the castle, how would I maybe do that? Also, wenn ich wollte, wie könnte ich in den Schloss gehen? Wenn ich vielleicht eine Einladung? Dankeschön. Tschüss. But the good news about this place up here is that you don't actually have to go in the castle grounds to get nice views. They're everywhere.
At this point, looking over to Switzerland, I realized I could walk into a third country in the same day. But first, I needed some lunch.
I just want to see how much stuff costs here at McDonald's. Let's see how much a Big Mac with some fries and a soda costs. Well, 14.10 Swiss francs, so like 15 euros or 17 or so dollars. And coincidentally, they also have a Subway here. And it looks like the prices are, on average, a little bit higher than McDonald's.
Eating out here can add up quickly, even fast food, so I figured I'd try something a bit more local.
Haben Sie etwas, das eigentlich aus Liechtenstein kommt, zum Essen?
Ja,
Wenn möglich.
es gibt Wein, es gibt Bier, Käse.
Also nur zum Essen, das geht.
Ja.
Dankeschön.
Liechtenstein doesn't produce much of its own food, but they do have local cheeses.
And the smallest local cheese I could find was this Liechtensteiner Käse, 4.25 Swiss francs. And I think the meat section might be like the biggest one in the store. They've got a lot of nice kind of cured beef products on sale, and we found quite a few different meats, but 2 of them were 50% off. There's some roast beef and some, it's like cooked ham. And they've got these little nut cakes that aren't, I guess they're not really local exactly, but I mean, we're close enough to Switzerland and they only cost 2 francs and 10 cents each. And I've got one more final purchase to make here because I just want some potato chips. The best deal here is on Pringles.
Overall, a trip to the grocery store turned out to be cheaper than I expected. So we headed back outside to find a good picnic spot.
And it's the Rhine River over here.
Honestly, not a bad place for lunch. Probably one of the better views I've had sitting on a bench.
Well, the cheese and meats on bread was actually pretty tasty, I have to say.
And yeah, the cake was worth it. Lunch by the river complete, it was time for country number 3, Switzerland.
But I've almost made it over to the Swiss flag. So goodbye Liechtenstein and hello Switzerland, at least for a little while.
And the first thing I noticed wasn't the scenery, it was this.
There's no information there about what that is, but if I had to guess, it's probably a bunker from World War II.
This town is called Buchs, and even for Switzerland, it felt surprisingly quiet. I found a couple of things, another bunker, but honestly not much. Just a little low-key, unplanned visit. From there, it was back on the train. Just a short ride into Austria again, and then continuing on towards Innsbruck. And this is where things really start to feel different, because I'd flown over this part of Europe dozens of times and never really thought about what it looks like down here. Up until now, the Alps had just kind of been building up in the background, but this stretch of track actually takes you through them. Town by town, peak by peak, not a sudden shift, but a gradual build into something much bigger. One minute you're in a tunnel, and the next everything changes again. It almost feels like moving between different worlds without ever actually stopping. By the time I made it to Innsbruck, it was already dark, and something about this place just felt different. Not because Germany suddenly became Austria, but because of everything that happened in between. All those small changes building up to this. A city completely surrounded by mountains. And somewhere beyond those mountains, the journey starts to shift again, towards Italy. This was just the first part of the journey. By the time I reached Venice, I had taken 12 different trains. But before leaving Austria, there's still Innsbruck to experience. We'll see it all in the next video.